Okay, this is especially for Sean MPWH, just to show him how some of us are interpreting Matthew 24 and showing how it was fulfilled by 1992. So this is a quick run through, no real explanation, just showing you how to check off those prophecies. So it's going to be quick, and so we're going to run right through them. So Matthew 24, these are the prophecies. It's just a check off of those prophecies. 24:3 talks about the system of things, the conclusion of the system of things. The system of things is the Gentile times. It's not the end of the world. It's the world that the Jews knew under the Gentiles. And so they wanted to know, when will the end of the system of things, the end of the Gentile times would occur, which occurred in 1947, and what are the signs that are going to be happening around that time. His parousia is his presence. Parousia means around his coming. So that's what they're asking in 24:3. Here in these next few verses, 24, 4 through 6, it talks about wars and reports of wars. Don't pay attention to those. It's setting you up for the very first sign of what turns out to be a generation of 80 years, if you want to interpret it that way. And that will be a world war. So it says nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom. This is a world war. This is 1914, World War I, that will begin this parousia of his, these signs that will happen leading up to when the Christ will arrive. Food shortages, of course, the great food shortages would include the depression. It says earthquakes, but it really means agitations, social unrest that would be leading up into when the Messiah would arrive. And these are the beginnings of the pains of distress, a time of trouble. So that was fulfilled. It talks about there will be a tribulation. People would kill them. There would be persecution. Now, primarily, these prophecies are going to deal with two temple organizations. One is the natural Jews, and one are Jehovah's Witnesses, who are selected to preach the good news. And so, but it talks about many prophets will come forward and mislead many, and some of those prophets, unfortunately, are part of Jehovah's Witness organization. Now, the greater number has to do with the Jews. The lesser number has to do with Jehovah's Witnesses. So when it talks about the lawlessness and the love of the greater number cooling off, it's talking about anti-Semitism. The love of the Jews is going to increase leading up into the Holocaust, which was the Great Tribulation. So that's what this is talking about. So we're talking about 1914 leading up into 1939. And it talks about the good news being preached in the inhabited earth for a witness to all the nations, and then the end will come. Again, the end is not Armageddon. The end is actually the end of the Gentile times, happening in 1947, and the preaching is done by Jehovah's Witnesses, who have to be an international organization by 1947, which they were. The next thing is the disgusting thing in the holy place would be the Nazi army in Judea. Judea is symbolic of where the Jews are in exile. The concentration of the Jews are in Warsaw, Poland, and we know that the Nazi army completely, literally surrounded this city, just like the Roman army surrounded Jerusalem. And so that's what this sign is. And when that sign starts, they're supposed to flee to the mountains, literally flee to the mountains. This is talking about the problem that a woman would have if she has little babies during the Holocaust. If you were single, you could run into the mountains, but if you have a little kid, what are you going to do with them? It's going to be very difficult. And this is going to be a tribulation that has never happened before. This is a one-time event. It didn't happen in 70 CE. This is going to be the beginning of this is something that never happened before and would never happen again. And this is talking about the Holocaust. This is the great tribulation that would happen to the Jews just before the Messiah would arrive. Again, it says, in fact, those days were cut short. No flesh would be saved. This flesh refers to the Jews. That hour of distress was supposed to be 7 years, from 1940 to 1947. But 2/3 of the Jews prophesied to be killed were killed by late 1944. So those days were cut short. World War II was cut short. Otherwise, more than 2/3 of the Jews would be killed. And so that's what that's a reference to. Uh, then, of course, the Christ was supposed to arrive. You don't pay any attention to anyone who's claiming that they see the Christ, because Christ's own followers who would know him would not announce him, and that's what these verses are talking about. So if they say, look, he's in the wilderness, don't believe him, because Christ's own followers will not tell who he is or where he is, but they do know where he is. A very few of them do. Christ would appear to them as lightning, which meant lightning is just a flash. It's bright. It shows from east to west, but it's not a continuous light. And this is just a reference fulfilled by the Messiah. Once he arrives in the flesh, he'll appear on television, on national television, a couple of times, so that all the anointed can see him. So that's how that's fulfilled. Wherever the carcass is, there the eagles will be gathered. The eagles are the select anointed ones who will know who the Christ is, where he is. He's called a carcass because at one point he fulfills the parable of the prodigal son. He leaves God and he undergoes a spiritual death, but then he comes back and God then turns him into the Messiah. So that's why they are mourning over him. That's why they say wherever the carcass is, the eagles will be gathered, but they are observing him while he's a carcass. Therefore, this happens from the time he's born, which is shortly after 1947. Immediately after the tribulation of the days, the sun will be darkened. This means spiritual darkness over all of Christendom, over everyone who needs to know these details about the Messiah coming as a prodigal son. This would not be understood by the greater majority. Only the eagles would see him and understand him. And they would see the sign, a glorious coming of him when he does arrive. The sign of the Son of Man actually did appear, starting with his birth, and when he actually became the Messiah in 1992, there was a glorious sign where there was an infant seen on the clouds and the heavens opened up, and so it was quite glorious. So that actually happened in 1992 between December 25th and 26th. Actually, the sign happened on December 26th in the afternoon. Well, I'm running out of time. There's a sign of the Son of Man. You can stop and look at it. Here's a mockery of it in a Jehovah's Witnesses literature. The sign was a sleeping black child representing the dead prodigal son. So that's what happened there. And during this period of time when Satan is kicked out, Christ sends out his angels to seal the anointed. Some of the angels will actually materialize in literal bodies pretending to be humans, actually. And the sealing was completed just recently, May 2008. This reference to the fig tree is the establishment of the nation of state of Israel, which must happen before this Messiah comes, but just before he arrives. So that happened in 1947, 1948. The Messiah was born as a human to fulfill his 40 years in 1950. It talks about when you see these things, know that the Messiah would be soon to arrive. Heaven and earth is another way of saying the system of things. It's the order of things. And heaven and earth would not pass away. That is, the end of the Gentile times would not occur until all these things occurred. Again, this is tongue-in-cheek when it says no one knows the day or hour, because 3 prophecies in the Bible show exactly what year the Messiah would arrive. And I have some videos on that if you want to check them out. He has arrived 45 years after the Jews returned to their homeland, and that was 1947. This just says that people won't be paying attention, and that the end of the world will come, and the Messiah would arrive without them realizing it. He comes as a thief for most of the world, and that's how the last days will be. This talks about that 2 men in the field, one will be taken, one won't. A woman will be taken and one won't. It shows that this is a spiritual anointing of these people. So you can be in the same religion, doing the same things, and no one will know which one is chosen and which one is not. Again, a self-explanatory warning about being alert. And last verses have to deal with who the faithful and discreet slave is. It is Jesus Christ when he returns. The evil slave is the Watchtower Society. All done.